Hey everybody, welcome back. Steve Basic here. We're back out at the on the Vineyard Passive House, and even though I'm in the basement here, we're not talking about the basement anymore. We're going to talk about floor framing because I think we did some pretty cool stuff here that is somewhat atypical, but it's a really good solution for what we got going on there. If you remember, we did our foundation out of the Perfect block. We got 11 courses here. They're 12-inch blocks. We got 11 feet, yields about a 10-foot ceiling here. But one of the issues, if you remember when we talked about the Perfect block, was how do we put the floor frame and get it closer to the ground? Well, the solution was, you can see, we hung the floor frame inside the block foundation. So we have these Simpson hangers that are actually saddle hangers. They go up and they go over the top of the mud sill, and we'll look at this when we look at it in detail. But you can see basically the whole floor frame is hung down inside the foundation wall. So that means that we can bring our grade up much higher. So the outside ground is pretty much right about the level of the bottom of these floor joists. These are an open web, trimmable joist, so you can see all the services we can run through, plumbing and etc. through there. But you can also notice on this side, it has this trimmable edge. Now this one is damn near trimmed to the end, but this comes out where this trimmable edge is about 12 inches. And so that you can cut it to length here on the site. So we don't need this perfectly measured floor truss. They send them out slightly oversized and then we trim them back. But again, it just dropping that floor frame in here makes a world of difference. We can jump outside and we'll just talk about it a little further, and it may help you out and put it a little bit more in perspective there. So let's jump outside and take a look. All right, so we're down in the basement. We talked about that floor frame. We jumped outside here to just give you the kind of exterior perspective. I'm down in a hole. You can see we started backfilling the foundation. Perfect block recommends some type of waterproofing or drainage system. So here we went with a Dorkin Delta mat. You can see it's a dimpled mat that once it gets pushed up, water has the ability to infiltrate and go all the way down. Now, in this house here, we don't have a perimeter drain, and it's always measured by the amount of risk that is needed to be taken. And in this case here, this sand goes down for many feet. You could pour buckets of water, it just literally disappears. So we don't have that high water table or the risk of having any water accumulate. We just need to be able to get groundwater to get it to move down fast along the foundation. So the Delta MS mat is going to handle that for us. It's going to run that water down, get rid of it. But we're up here more to talk about the relationship of that floor frame. Remember, we talked about this is the top of the Perfect block. So our floor joists downstairs, if you remember, they're hung down, probably they're about 12 inches or so, and they're sitting on top of that, the saddle hanger sits on top of the mud sill. So basically, the bottom of that truss is right here where my hand is, where the grade is roughly. And the floor here is right here. So the grade now will finish here. We'll be about a foot above grade with that floor. Now the difference is if we did that traditional frame floor, instead of being in here, we'd be up here somewhere. So we'd have to make up that difference in the steps. And talking with Farley, who's the homeowner here, we want to try and get that down as close as we can. So any of our doors is a single step out. And so there's a huge advantage to dropping that floor frame into the foundation wall and getting that really close to grade here. So let's jump back to the studio. We'll grab a couple of the details, we'll pull them out. Of course, Big Red will help us. We'll get some further explanation there. See you back at the studio. Yes! Hopefully you enjoyed that trip out to Martha's Vineyard. Always a treat. Talking about building construction. Always a treat. Talking about passive houses. Always a treat. Talking about floor framing. When is that not a treat? Put it all together, we got one hell of a treat. So, let's get out our good friend, Big Red, and let's break out a detail and let's talk about what we saw out there. So let's get at it. We got our detail. Means we got action. All right, so let's figure out where we are. Let's get some orientation here. Foundation wall, better known as the Perfect Block. If you haven't seen those videos from the previous versions, suggest go check them out. Not only do we talk about the Perfect Block, we caught Farley and his guys for a couple days, followed them around while they were installing the block. So you get to see it all get installed. It's a really cool product. It's a ICCF, which is insulated composite concrete form. This is all recycled EPS. So it's doing a good thing by having those EPS boundaries on the block and minimizing that concrete core. We take out about 70% of the concrete out of the foundation wall in doing this foundation system. And the thing is we really didn't have to pour it or add any block other than what we would normally do. Now, we talked about it out there. We got a 10-foot roughish basement height, but that's because we added a few blocks to get the basement height. Adding the block did absolutely nothing for this detail. What we did in this detail was basically relocate the position of the floor frame. If we had the block here, and here we have our grade, finish grade, and top of block, right there, well, that dimension, X, remains unchanged regardless of what we do. But the difference is everything after that point. Typically, we would do a mud sill. In New England, we would do a double mud sill. We'd anchor bolt that in, and we have our reinforcing. But then we would come in here. We would typically run our band joist and run our floor joist off the top of that and have our subfloor. So you'd see our subfloor frame would be pretty darn high. Typically, this is on the order of maybe about 25 inches, plus or minus. But by taking this floor frame and taking it over and sliding it down inside the belly, well, yeah, it reduces what would have been the ceiling height here to the ceiling height here, but that's simply solved by just adding a course of block in the wall to push this, not necessarily push this up. What you're doing is pushing the slab deeper into the ground to get that 10-foot height. But the relationship of top of block to grade would remain unchanged. It would be slab to grade is the dimension that changes. But taking this and moving it down, well, we have our double mud sill. We had to add a couple blocks out here, but then we worked with Simpson to get the right hanger, and basically we installed this saddle hanger, and it gets attached up here and basically just receives that floor truss. Now, the floor trusses out here, they're a pre-manufactured item, but they're what's called a trimmable floor joist, or floor truss. So they come out with a solid end piece, and that solid end piece can get trimmed. Typically, this is about 24 inches of trimmable length, and we just trimmed it back. You can see the one out there in the video out on the site. We trimmed it back pretty significantly. And then it has the open web truss, so we can run utilities through that system. So having that trimmable end means we get the benefit of the floor truss, but we don't have to get that exact length and get those pre-manufactured to a very specific length. They get sent out there within 24 inches, and we trim them to size. But you can see by moving that down, we basically have our X dimension plus the double mud sill plus the subfloor, and then that gets us kind of our floor, top of floor here, dimension down to grade, right? And you can see that's a significant drop from what is a traditional floor frame to what we did out there. And the beauty of that is by bringing this down, the client really wanted to be able to just come in here and put in something like a granite block and have that one step down to the granite block and then one step down to grade, rather than have this up here with some kind of wood frame and handrails and multiple steps down to grade. We really brought that house down to the finish grade, finish elevation to really get that much stronger connection between that floor inside and the grade outside there. And again, it was simply by eliminating that bearing, typical bearing situation where we just set those floor joists on top of the mud sill, to moving to the saddle hanger and basically just taking our floor, shrinking it the 12 inches in length, and then dropping it down inside that foundation wall, so that basically the subfloor runs out over the top of that perfect block. So it worked out really, really well out there. I know the client is very happy. I've done this a number of times. Should have printed out a alternative detail that I used on other jobs, but you can do this same situation with a top cord bearing truss. So you can get that top cord bearing and run that top cord out over there, and then that would just take off from that top cord, and the bottom cord would just come out and be able to catch the drywall for the ceiling there. But the top cord bearing truss does pretty much the same thing. By moving from a bottom cord bearing to a top cord bearing, you lose a little bit of capacity in the truss and what it can carry, because it's not that gravity at the bottom, it's gravity being basically hung. So we lose a little bit, but it still is possible. It depends on the size of the house and truss spans and all of that good stuff. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this. Big Red saved the day again, came out, gave us a little bit of a discussion here, so hope you enjoyed it. So there you have it. Big Red is going to bed. So I know, you guys didn't think I was a poet. I am. Didn't even know it. Ha! See what I did there? Anyways, so building construction, Martha's Vineyard, passive house, floor framing. I don't know if we can top this video. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? Anyways, maybe it does. I got a whole series of videos out there. Been doing this for a while now, so if you haven't checked out some of those previous videos, go check them out. If you have checked out all my videos, watch them again. If you've watched them again, then go check out Matt, Jake, Brent, and Wade. These guys are doing some phenomenal stuff. These are really cool dudes doing some really cool work, and they're putting it on film for you to watch. So go check them out. You want to hear more from me? Find me on Instagram, Steven Basic Architect. Dropping information almost daily where we talk and discuss buildings, building science, all that good stuff. How we get from here to there and get through the day. If you want even more than that, every other Thursday on Build It Podcast, I join my good buddies Jake Bruton and Peter Yost. We talk about everything building science. We break down some pretty complex information, and we bring it to you in what I would consider a very jovial manner. So go check it out. But until next time, Steve Basic from The Build Show. We're done talking about building tonight. Long live our buildings.